So once you hit your 30s, your body quietly initiates this slow leak, basically, draining your testosterone by up to like 1 to 3% every single year.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's significant over time.
Right. It's this biological downgrade that slowly chips away your muscle mass, your bone density, your baseline energy, and even your mood.
Right.
And for the longest time, the narrative was just, well, you're getting older. Deal with it.
Which is incredibly defeatist, you know, especially when you look at what's actually happening at the cellular level.
Yeah.
The decline isn't just some inevitability of time. It's often an inevitability of our modern environment and how our habits are literally stripping our endocrine system of what it needs to function.
Exactly. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking a massive stack of clinical trials and decoding the actual biological mechanisms here. We're cutting through all the, the internet gym bro pseudoscience.
Because the data actually shows you don't just have to sit there and accept that downward curve.
Right. You can actively fight it,
Right.
provided you understand the specific raw materials, the environmental signals, and the physical triggers that your body actually requires.
Yeah, we're going to break this down into 3 core pillars today. First, the dietary adjustments, which are the building blocks. Then lifestyle habits, which create the environment. And finally, exercise protocols, which are the trigger.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with what we put on our plates.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can't build a house without bricks, right?
Exactly. Before we even look at gym routines, we have to ensure the body has the raw micro and macronutrients required to synthesize these hormones. It all starts with the raw materials.
Right.
And if we look at the synthesis of steroid hormones, testosterone isn't magically generated from thin air. It has a very specific molecular origin, and that origin is cholesterol.
Which flies completely in the face of the extreme diet culture we've been, swimming in for the last couple of decades.
Oh, absolutely.
Because in one of the recent systematic reviews on dietary impacts that we looked at, the data on extreme low-fat diets is pretty damning.
It really is. When men slash their dietary fat, their total testosterone significantly decreases. I mean, if you aren't eating enough healthy fats, think whole eggs, avocados, olive oil, nuts, your body literally lacks the foundational lipid molecules required to manufacture the hormone.
So you are starving the production line before it even opens.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. And we see a similar, though mechanically different, disaster when people swing to the other extreme and drastically cut carbohydrates.
Right, the whole anti-carb movement.
Exactly. A lot of people assume cutting carbs is the ultimate biohack for body composition. But a large-scale review of low-carbohydrate diets revealed a direct link to elevated cortisol.
Okay, let's actually dig into the biochemistry of that for a second.
Yeah.
Because this is where that concept of the Pregnenolone steal comes into play.
Yes.
I was looking through the research we gathered, and this concept completely reframed how I view diet and stress.
The Pregnenolone steal is arguably the most critical concept in endocrinology that, well, nobody really talks about.
Right, so what is it?
So Pregnenolone is a precursor hormone. It's the master raw material that your body uses to make both cortisol and testosterone. It's essentially this shared biological bank account.
Okay, a shared account. So if you put your body into a state of severe physiological stress, like starving yourself of carbohydrates for a prolonged period, your body perceives that as a survival threat, right?
Exactly. It thinks you're starving. So it starts aggressively withdrawing from that shared bank account to produce cortisol to deal with the stress.
Wow.
And because it's a zero-sum game, the more pregnenolone gets diverted to synthesize cortisol, the less is available to synthesize testosterone.
So your body will always prioritize short-term survival over, long-term reproduction and muscle growth.
Always. Every single time. So a diet that drastically cuts either fats or carbohydrates isn't just suboptimal, it actively suppresses your endocrine function.
It's working against you.
Right. The clinical baseline for optimizing testosterone isn't an extreme protocol, it's a balanced intake of whole foods. You need the cholesterol to build the hormone and the carbohydrates to keep cortisol from stealing those building blocks.
So macros are the engine fuel. They are the heavy construction materials.
Yeah.
But you also need the specialized workers on the factory floor to actually assemble everything.
Yes, the micronutrients.
Right. In the sources, we see a heavy emphasis on specific micronutrients, starting with vitamin D, which is wild because Up to 1 billion people globally are deficient in it.
It's staggering. It's a massive issue because vitamin D shouldn't even really be classified as a vitamin in this context. It functions as a potent steroid hormone.
Right.
We looked at a robust Mendelian randomization analysis that drew a direct causal link between vitamin D deficiency and lowered total testosterone.
Okay, why is that?
Well, the Leydig cells in your testes, which is the actual site of testosterone production, are practically covered in vitamin D receptors.
Meaning if those receptors sit empty because you aren't getting enough sun exposure or, supplementing, the Leydig cells simply won't operate at full capacity.
Exactly. They become sluggish. The analysis showed that targeted supplementation directly improves total testosterone output. And we see similar enzymatic bottlenecks with minerals like zinc and magnesium.
Yeah, let's talk about those. There was that Inciani study on older men that showed a really strong independent association between higher magnesium levels and higher total testosterone, as well as IGF-1.
Magnesium is a critical spark plug, yes.
But I want to push back on one of the other studies in our stack regarding zinc.
Okay, sure.
I noticed the clinical trial proving that zinc supplementation significantly increased testosterone was actually conducted on postmenopausal women.
Ah, yes.
So why are we using female clinical data when talking about optimizing a predominantly male hormone? Is this just a guy thing, or does it matter for everyone?
I'm really glad you brought that up because it highlights a massive blind spot in how we discuss endocrinology. We tend to gender these hormones entirely.
Right, testosterone is for guys, estrogen is for women.
Exactly, which is overly simplistic. While men produce and utilize exponentially higher absolute quantities of testosterone, the fundamental biological machinery, the enzymes, the receptors, the cellular pathways, they are universal.
So the way a human body uses zinc to synthesize testosterone doesn't change based on biological sex.
Not at all. In both men and women, zinc acts as a crucial cofactor for the enzymes that convert weaker androgens into testosterone. If you are deficient in zinc, that enzymatic conversion stalls, regardless of whether you have ovaries or testes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And in women, testosterone is vital for muscle maintenance, bone density, and overall metabolic health. The fact that zinc upregulated testosterone in postmenopausal women proves just how fundamental this mineral is to the baseline enzymatic process.
Makes total sense. And we actually have a classic study looking at athletes taking a specific zinc-magnesium formulation. When combined with intense exercise, their testosterone levels jump from roughly 130 picograms per milliliter to over 170.
That's a massive physiological leap just from providing the body with the right cofactors.
So the actionable takeaway here is pretty clear, right? Get your blood work done, and if you are deficient in vitamin D, magnesium, or zinc, you are literally leaving free testosterone on the table.
Precisely. But, fixing the diet and plugging the micronutrient holes only works if the systemic environment allows it.
Right, the environment.
Yeah. We talked about the Pregnenolone steal and how cortisol hijacks the raw materials. Well, the fastest, most aggressive way to trigger that hijacking isn't just a bad diet, it's poor sleep.
Oh, man. Sleep. Listeners, think about your own week for a second. How many hours of actual restorative sleep did you get last night?
Yeah.
Not just time lying in bed staring at the ceiling or scrolling on your phone, but deep, uninterrupted sleep.
It's usually a lot less than people think. Research out of the University of Chicago looked at healthy young men guys in their physical prime and restricted their sleep.
And what happened?
The resulting drop in testosterone was immediate and severe. We aren't talking about a gradual decline over months. A few nights of sleep restriction mimics the hormonal profile of someone aging a decade or more.
A decade? Just from a few nights of bad sleep.
Yeah, it's brutal. Another massive population study involving over 2,200 males corroborated this, linking impaired sleep directly to clinically lower testosterone.
Okay, but let's look under the hood here. We hear, get more sleep all the time. But biologically, what's actually breaking down in the body when we don't?
It comes down to a communication breakdown within the hypothalamus pituitary gonadal axis, or the HPG axis.
Okay, the HPG axis.
Right. This is the signaling pathway that controls your entire reproductive system. Your brain, specifically the hypothalamus, has to release an initiator signal, which tells the pituitary gland to release luteinizing hormone, or LH.
And then LH travels down through the bloodstream to the Leydig cells, basically knocking on the door and telling them to start synthesizing testosterone from that cholesterol we ate earlier.
You've got it. But here is the critical physiological catch. The vast majority of those LH pulses, the strongest signals commanding your body to make testosterone, They occur during the deep REM stages of sleep.
Oh, I see. So if you are chronically cutting your sleep down to 5 or 6 hours, you are physically missing the specific sleep architecture where the brain sends the manufacturing orders.
The signal gets blunted entirely. The Leydig cells never receive the luteinizing hormone, so they sit idle.
Wow.
I mean, you can have all the dietary cholesterol, all the vitamin D, and all the zinc circulating in your blood, but without the LH signal generated during deep sleep, those raw materials are completely useless.
And add to that the fact that sleep deprivation massively spikes your cortisol, and you have a perfect storm.
Exactly. You've lost the production signal, and your stress hormones are stealing whatever precursor materials are left. It's a complete shutdown of the system.
Man, that is bleak. Okay, so let's assume we've corrected the environment. We are eating balanced macros to avoid the pregnenolone steal. We're topped up on micronutrients, and we're getting quality REM-heavy sleep, so the HPG axis is firing.
The factory has the materials, and the workers are clocked in.
Right. Now we need the physical trigger. We need to actively demand that the body uses these resources.
Which brings us to exercise protocols. And the data here is incredibly specific. Just being, generally active does not provoke a significant endocrine response.
So walking the dog isn't going to cut it.
No, unfortunately not. To force an adaptation to push testosterone above its baseline, you have to subject the body to significant resistance training.
But not all lifting is created equal, right? There's this really fascinating thesis we reviewed from the University of Nevada that completely dismantles the typical lift as heavy as possible all the time gym mentality.
Yes, that one is a real eye-opener. The researchers tested different lifting intensities on trained individuals to see what actually maximized the hormonal spike post-workout.
They compared a moderate intensity protocol lifting at 70% of a 1 repetition maximum against a high intensity protocol at 90% of 1 rep max.
Right. And for context, 70% is a weight you can probably move for about 10 to 12 reps before failing.
Yeah, and 90% is a grueling weight. You might only be able to lift for maybe 2 or 3 reps.
Exactly. So logically, you would assume the heavier weight, the 90%, demands more from the body and therefore triggers more testosterone.
That is definitely the assumption.
But the biology tells a completely different story. The moderate intensity protocol, the 70% load, created a statistically significant 29.4% spike in testosterone immediately post-workout.
And the 90%.
The high-intensity 90% protocol did not show a statistically significant increase at all.
That is wild. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's unpack the biological why behind that. Because I want to use an analogy that really solidified this concept for me.
Go for it.
Think of triggering a testosterone response like trying to build a metabolic fire. If you use a 70% load, you are providing the perfect amount of kindling and heat. You perform 10 reps, you accumulate metabolic stress like lactate and hydrogen ions in the muscle, and you rest for maybe 60 to 90 seconds.
Right.
The fire builds and builds, trapping that stress in the tissue, which literally screams at your endocrine system to release hormones to help the muscle survive.
That's a great analogy. And conversely, when you load the bar to 90%, you are dropping a massive, suffocating log onto the fire. It's so heavy that it immediately exhausts your central nervous system.
Because it's just too much load all at once.
Exactly. Because your CNS is fried after just 2 or 3 reps, you are forced to sit on a bench and rest for 3, 4, even 5 minutes before you can attempt another set.
And that long rest period completely dissipates the metabolic stress. The fire burns out.
Yes, you don't accumulate the lactate, you don't trap the blood in the muscle long enough, and the endocrine system never gets the panic signal to release the testosterone spike.
It makes perfect sense. And we saw this in the older gold standard research from the 1990s, too.
Oh, yeah. They proved that the total volume of work measured in joules and the sheer size of the muscle mass being recruited are the 2 biggest variables.
Meaning a set of bicep curls, even at 70% of your max, isn't going to move the hormonal needle.
No. The muscle group is simply too small to demand a systemic response. You have to recruit massive amounts of tissue simultaneously.
So we're talking squats, deadlifts, Olympic-style lifts.
Exactly. When you hit large muscle groups with moderate intensity for multiple sets, say 3 sets of 10 reps, you can cause a 32% jump in testosterone just 5 minutes after the session. You are demanding a systemic adaptation, and the body complies.
Okay, so what does the data say about cardiovascular training? Because there's a very vocal subset of the fitness community that claims running will instantly kill your gains and crater your testosterone.
Well, the science is nuanced, but it largely depends on the duration and intensity. Long duration, steady-state endurance cardio-like training for a marathon can absolutely lower testosterone and elevate cortisol.
So running for hours is counterproductive for hormones.
Yeah, if you are consistently running for 2 hours, your body biologically adapts to become lighter and more efficient. Muscle is metabolically expensive to carry, so the body suppresses the anabolic hormones that build it and elevates the catabolic hormones that break it down.
But we shouldn't throw cardio out entirely, right? Because the cardiovascular benefits are non-negotiable for longevity.
Absolutely not. The alternative in the clinical data seems to be high-intensity interval training, or HIA.
Right, HIA. Because one of the 2021 studies we reviewed showed that HIIT protocols can acutely boost total testosterone by roughly 17%.
Yes. Short, explosive bursts of cardio, like a 20-second all-out sprint followed by a minute of walking, repeated for maybe 15 minutes, mimics the metabolic stress of resistance training.
Because you're recruiting fast-twitch muscle fiber.
Exactly. You're generating a massive amount of lactate and keeping the duration short enough that cortisol doesn't have time to hijack the pregnenolone supply.
It's a perfect balance. So the general recommendation is to focus primarily on compound resistance movements in the 8 to 12 rep range, resting just long enough to recover, but short enough to maintain the metabolic stress.
And supplement with high-intensity interval work rather than endless miles of steady-state jogging.
Got it.
Yeah.
So we've covered a tremendous amount of biological ground today. If you want to fight that natural 1 to 3% decline, you have to respect the system.
You really do.
You provide the raw cholesterol and limit severe carb restrictions to prevent the pregnenolone steal. You ensure your Leydig cells have the vitamin D, zinc, and magnesium cofactors they need to operate.
Yep.
You ruthlessly protect your REM sleep, so the HPG axis actually sends the manufacturing signal. And finally, you pull the trigger with moderate intensity, high-volume compound lifts that build a metabolic fire.
It is a comprehensive, scientifically validated blueprint. But, there's one final deeper layer to this that completely shifts how we should think about our hormones.
Oh, this is the finding about the receptors, right?
Yes, the anthropometric research. This completely changes the narrative.
Break down what they discovered about androgen receptors.
Yeah.
Because this made me rethink the entire goal of quote-unquote optimizing testosterone.
So we spend so much time obsessing over the sheer volume of testosterone circulating in the bloodstream, the actual number on the blood test.
Right. Everyone wants a higher number.
But the research highlights that a properly structured resistance training program does something far more profound than just giving you a temporary 30% spike in circulating hormones. It actually increases the density and the sensitivity of the androgen receptors embedded within your muscle tissue.
Okay, so the receptors are the actual lock, and testosterone is the key.
Exactly.
If you have 1,000 keys floating around in your blood, but only 10 locks on your muscles, most of that testosterone is useless.
Spot on. What resistance training does is physically alter the architecture of your muscles, building hundreds of new locks and making the existing ones hypersensitive. It means your body becomes exceptionally efficient at capturing and utilizing whatever testosterone you do have available.
Which fundamentally changes the paradigm. I mean, even if your baseline 24/7 blood levels don't permanently double from all these lifestyle changes, the consistent heavy lifting is upgrading the actual machinery of your muscles to extract maximum value from every single drop of hormone you produce.
Exactly. It's a structural upgrade.
Maybe we've been obsessing over the wrong metric this whole time. It's less about constantly overflowing the fuel tank and more about how brilliantly you can upgrade the engine to use that fuel. Something to think about during your next workout.